Hello, and welcome to the 33rd episode of the Extreme Hardware Podcast. It has been a few weeks since we've recorded due to some technical difficulties, but we are here and potentially alive.
I hope so.
Yeah. I am joined by our typical illustrious crew, starting with Jack.
Hey, everybody.
Followed by Frickfrock.
Yo.
And Chris.
I'm back to podcast juice because it's also coping mechanism
Also,
juice.
you're not-
I live in hell right now.
Also, you're no longer in swinging distance anymore. I'm actually kind of sad about that.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That means you're not a threat to me and you can't tell me what to do, Dad.
Haha, yes.
I think that's the theme song to Malcolm in the Middle, isn't it? You're not the boss of me now, and you're not so big.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, probably.
All right, so let's go ahead and get this show started with some leaks.
Oh, yeah, leaks.
So we have recently received a leak from our favorite Twitter account, Momomo US.
Yeah, it's a world
in
exclusive.
regards to Alder Lake and LGA socket LGA1700.
Haha, Intel making a new socket. That's what I would expect from Shintel XD, haha.
Haha, AMD is the good company. They are my friend.
They are.
So basically, these two pieces of information came within the same leak. Alder Lake S is going to be the next big socket the next mainstream socket, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
not the next one. The next one's Rocket Lake. That's going to be on LGA 1200. Alder Lake comes after that.
I'm not referring to Rocket Lake. I'm talking about what comes next.
Well, Rocket Lake comes next. Simmons, whatever. It's fine. I get what you mean, but we got to clarify this. We got to clarify this for the folks at home.
Gotta be clear. I want to get sued.
So yes, the 11th gen Rocket Lake CPUs will work in socket LGA 1200/Z490 motherboards, but it looks like Alder Lake will definitely not. They are adding 500 pins, as the name implies, which is very interesting. Also, Alder Lake S is expected to be on 10 nanometer with the new socket, as well as on the future coming DDR5 memory.
Yeah.
That's like legit.
The deal with the pins, what I'm betting is that Intel keeps the same like socket H layout, socket H being like LGA 1156, 1155, 50, 51, and I guess LGA 1200.
Yeah,
but that's like basically since LGA 1156, they have not really changed the mechanical specifications of the socket. So you can use, like if you bought a cooler in like 2009, which we don't talk about, for your Linfield CPU, you can still use that on your shiny new 10900K. Like, it will just work. And odds are pretty good as well that if you jiggle it a little bit, you can probably get a LGA775 cooler to work as well, because it's almost the same size. It's not quite, but it is almost the same size. So what I suspect Intel is doing is they are keeping roughly the same physical size socket. They're just using finer pin pitch and smaller pins. But the reason they need a few more pins is for, I'm betting, extra PCI Express. Because the one thing that AMD is doing that is just really beating Intel right now is they have a dedicated link off the CPU, a dedicated extra 4 lanes for attaching an NVMe SSD. I suspect that Intel is going to try to replicate that, and that's part of the reason they need more pins. The other reason is, well, if they're smaller and finer pitch, then they can't each carry as much power as before, therefore they need more pins to make up. I'm not really sure, honestly, but that's my suspicion.
The other thing that comes to mind is maybe it's something in order to make sure they have more than enough I/O throughput for doing a full-fat PCI 4.0 installation on the entirety of the motherboard.
You wouldn't need more pins. Remember that. You wouldn't need more pins. A PCIe 4 slot has as many pins as a PCIe 3, 2, or 1 slot.
I mean,
that's just going to be tolerances at that point, something that can keep up with the signaling rate needed.
Now, something else that's interesting with the leak is apparently 2 Alder Lake S processors were included with the documentation that Momo provided, including a with 8 quote big cores and 8 little cores.
Right. So traditionally, when Intel names their CPU configurations, I'm not sure if this is used internally. I'm kind of unclear. But what they'll do is, for many years, your standard like desktop i7 used the 4+2 configuration. It had 4 CPU cores and it had GT2 graphics. That's like their mid-range graphics. Right. My CPU, because I have the 5775C, that's a 4+3E. 4 CPU cores, GT3 graphics, and then E for... I'm not sure why it's E, but that's for the L4 cache, because you could get Rockwell CPUs without it. So that's how they refer to the configuration. But here, Intel is referring to it as 8+8. Plus 1. I think it was 2? No, plus 1. So that means 8 big cores, 8 little cores, and 1 GT1 integrated graphics. That's not confirmed, but big little, it's been a thing in ARM for years. Microsoft's been working with, I think, Qualcomm first, frankly, to get like scheduling and Windows to work out with that. Intel, of course, released Lakefield recently, which is 4 Tremont Atom cores plus a single core, Sunny Cove core, Big C core, that is, like the brand. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that came to desktop. It shouldn't really increase complexity, I wouldn't think. Like, as in the die layout, like it shouldn't make it that much bigger because Atom cores are small. I'm curious. I'm also wondering if there's any kind of like environmental regulations, just because, well, idle CPUs use a lot of power, so if we can like slap background processes on Atom cores, well, might as well. We'll see how it goes. I am fully anticipating some weird garbage nonsense for a while. Like you launch a game and it's like, oh, we've got 24 logical cores, i.e. 16 8 hyper-threaded cores plus 8 Atom cores. Like, well, let's just spread everything around evenly. It's going to be a mess.
Yeah, there would have to be some scheduler magic that they'd have to work in.
There will have to be an off switch in BIOS, I think.
So the other thing that's interesting is within the slides that were provided to us, the big chip, the 8+8+1 configuration, is going to have the average new release Intel TDP of 125 watts. And then the other CPU that was in the slide was a 6+0+1 rated at 80 watts. So I find
that sounds pretty typical. Do keep in mind, though, that TDP doesn't really mean anything. I don't mean in terms of like motherboard manufacturers cheat and it's just a recommended spec and it's still in spec if you exceed it, blah, blah, blah. I mean more specifically that you can't really correlate number of cores and boost clock with power consumption because the 10900T, I believe, is a 35 watt TDP chip. It has 10 cores and I think it boosts up to like 4.5 gigahertz or 4.8.
Yeah, and it's got the pretty low
core. So that number on the box does not really tell you a whole lot about how, good the architecture should be. And it should be at least as good as Ice Lake or Sunny Cove, but I don't know about that.
Chris, the big thing I will say is at least what this tells us is that with the increase or the number of quote-unquote core increases, because we're just speculating as to what the big and small cores actually do mean. This does tell us that, obviously with the 10 nanometer, it's going to be less power, and then they're slapping on all this other stuff as well. So it's pretty traditional Intel next step in the iteration. So, I think it's neat regardless.
Yeah. Well, Sunny Cove was their big new architecture, like the first design that wasn't really iterative since Sandy Bridge, if I remember correctly. Like, that's their next big leap forward. So I would expect the next gen cores to be a bit more modest as far as improvements go.
What I want to know,
A sec.
I've got a 9700K right now, right? And it's pretty decent, but is this worth sort of shifting over and upgrading for? Or is it still not until the benchies come out, obviously, but just based on this, you think it's going to be worth upgrading from like current gen?
Well, I mean, okay, so wait, what CPU did you say you have?
9700K.
I mean, okay, so maybe for you, it might actually make a little bit of sense because generation to generation, the amount of performance that you typically get just from the historical data that we've seen, it's not completely worth it. But then once you start skipping a generation or two, then you actually start seeing performance increases.
Oh yeah, no, in my opinion, Frick, what CPU are you talking about upgrading from?
9700K.
9700K?
Yeah.
That's reason enough. I wouldn't really bother. I was going to say, like, because I thought you were still on Sandy Bridge for a while. Like, hell, Sandy Bridge, I'd say, was worth upgrading from since just Skylake, if only because the chipset's a lot faster and you get a lot more stuff on it, like NVMe support and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, Skylake's good. Like, it's fine. It's very highly refined at this point. It goes fast. There's not really a whole lot else to it. It's refined and it goes fast.
Yeah, I mean, that's my whole thing. I'm pretty much on the 4-year upgrade path. So every 4 years or so, I'll usually upgrade.
Yeah,
and that's worked out pretty well. I mean, that goes into that whole gap thing that Simmons was talking about where, I mean, side grades aside, probably not worth it too much. But if I upgrade every 4 years or so, I find I get the most performance impact from that.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely upgrading to a Ryzen 3000 pretty shortly. I promised myself a new computer once I clean up the basement.
And I will at some point upgrade to Threadripper 2, but we'll see what ends up happening.
We're going to talk about that in a second, buddy.
But not yet. We've got another rumor we should talk about also from Mr. Momomo US. So
Should I get 4,000? I'm on 1,000 now.
I mean, honestly, if you can afford it, go for it. But if you want to save some money, when 4,000 releases, go for 3,000 because that's kind of my plan right now.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a bad idea. However, based on what Charlie D of Semi-Accurate has said, Ryzen 3, or specifically Zen 3, is supposed to be incredibly good, like a big upgrade over existing stuff.
Well, I mean, once again, until we actually start seeing the reviews, it's going to really make a break. So...
Right,
like,
we need to get real data, but I trust Charlie D. Like, Semi-Accurate is way more than just semi-accurate.
Right.
They're accurate about semi-accurate.
Honestly, what my power move probably will be is going to be similar to how I acquired my 1080, right like a week before the 2080. I got my 1080 a week before the 2080s. The content embargo was lifted, and people were no. This worked out really good for me and really badly for the guy I got the GPU from because I managed to get this 1080 classified. I know I've talked about this before, but I got my EVGA 1080 classified for $200.
I'm like, what?
Crap! Shit, dude! I didn't realize that.
Yeah, no. I spent more money on a used 1070 Mini than I did on my used 1080 classified.
What did you have to replace on it? Was there something wrong with the fans?
No. Because everybody was because that was the first iteration of the RTX GPUs, right?
Yeah, everybody was just assuming that they were going to be a lot faster, but they really weren't.
So what ended up happening is, this was a week prior to the embargo lift, so no on the reviews. So people started fire selling their 1080s and their 1080 Ti's because they were expecting the RTX 2080 to surpass the 1080 Ti. Spoiler: the 1080 Ti still outcomputed the 2080 in some benchmarks. It was kind of a similar situation to the 970 versus the 970 versus the 780 all over again.
Yeah. Also keep in mind VRAM, because the 1080 Ti had more VRAM than the 2080, because this was the first time in several generations that NVIDIA didn't double the amount of VRAM that you got. Like the 256-bit card, still had 8 gigabytes this generation, and that was the first time since probably Fermi that they had done that.
I would say it's not needed, but it is. 8 gigabytes is not enough for Red Dead Redemption 2 in 4K.
Yeah, dude, I'm actually kind of disappointed because Rumor Mill is saying that Ampere isn't supposed to have like double the VRAM either. Like there's supposed to be a 20 gigabyte SKU, but it's going to be like the baseline is going to be 10, and the 8 gigabyte cards aren't going to get 16 gig variants, which is just I'm upset.
I love the fact that my graphics card is going to have more RAM than my actual PC. It's getting ridiculous.
Well, I mean, but that's what a lot of people are like. We don't have any articles on this, but I remember reading a couple weeks ago where there's been a lot of research into just pushing a lot of the CPU focused some specific. I'm blanking on specific terminology, but you could send some of the tasks that would typically go to the CPU for processing to the GPU instead and take a better advantage of the parallel processing that the GPU has to offer.
I think that was in context of like the Xbox One and the PS4, which have dinky little Jaguar CPUs. They aren't very good.
Well, sure.
I've got one at my desk. They're not good.
But the point of that is people started actually doing some research is because like obviously this works in consoles, so how could this kind of thing be leveraged in like a desktop based environment like Windows or Linux or Mac OS? You know, there are certain tasks that could absolutely be accelerated by the GPU. The issue, and I'm not talking about Discord's broken hardware acceleration that you were referencing.
I'll fight you.
No, but like the biggest issue that you start seeing is that now you start dedicating certain CPU cycles to move the data over to the GPU, and then the latency between the CPU and the GPU handoff might be an issue. So you're looking at ultimately re-engineering how an operating system scheduler works, but it's still fascinating that kind of software level development is actually happening. Or at least be considered again.
I literally bought a 1080 simply because I needed something that was way better for rendering Adobe Premiere videos, because they just only a couple years ago they started supporting GPU acceleration for everything. Yeah. The difference it made is, I'm not kidding, it's night and day. It is a dramatic difference between the two.
The only problem with GPU acceleration is that, to my knowledge, and NVIDIA is the best about it for sure, but to my knowledge, it is slightly worse than like true CPU encoding. However, one, if you're uploading to YouTube, it's going to get compressed to hell anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But
that's why just invest in a red camera, and then it'll get compressed to hell, but it would still look good.
Yeah. Well, that wouldn't be getting compressed to hell. That's getting compressed.
No. What you got to do is you got to pull the LTT move where they record in 8K, they render down to 1080p, and then upscale it to 4K to get the full, get more better pixels pushed to,
or skip the middleman, like Canon R5, which takes an 8K signal from its 8K, and when you use it in 4K mode, it automatically downscales that down to its 4K mode natively. So
God, super sampling. I'm moist.
All right, here. Let me cover this rumor real quick, and then we'll move on. So Momomo US did another leak about the GTX 1650 Ultra. So
yeah, I'm unclear on what this is supposed to be. In all honesty, so logically, fine.
I want to read some of the information that was put into this first.
I said fine.
Okay, so this comes from Galaxy.
It's not Galaxy, it's Galax.
It is.
It is.
Is it really?
Yeah, no. They dropped the Y for...
that's right, yeah.
Chinese sounding thing I've ever heard in my life.
But it is the Galaxy GTX 1660 Ultra. It is utilizing what they're calling TU106-125. This is allegedly the same chip used in the RTX 2060/2070 with the RTX cores lasered, essentially.
Oh, you know what? They've done this before. The GTX 1060 had some variants that used GP104. instead of GP106. It just cut it down a lot more. I guess NVIDIA had accumulated enough like crappy salvage dies that still worked enough.
Well, no, wait, what was that GPU? I'm blanking on it. It was an EVGA GPU, if I remember correctly, but it was essentially a 1080 or a 1070 chip where in games it functioned just like the 1060, but in certain compute loads, it would actually function closer to the 1070 or the 1080.
That wouldn't be an EVGA thing specifically. That's just due to the nature of the GPCs. So, like, I guess it's kind of like AMD's shader engines. I'm not really sure how to put it. Okay, you have your CUDA core. So that's like the most basic arithmetic logic unit, your ALU, that just does math. You have a bunch of those arranged into an SM, streaming multiprocessor, like 64 of those. And then those get condensed further into GPCs, which then go in the whole GPU. And like each GPC has its own hookup to a crossbar. So what I think ended up happening was, even though they had the same number of cores as a normal 1060 or whatever this was.
It was the 2060 KO, actually.
All right. Well, regardless, it had the same number of cores, but because of where the cores were located, they got more like uplinks to a crossbar, and as a result managed to like get more performance out of it. I'm trying to think what a good analogy would be like, but I'm really not sure. It's like...
Yep. No, it basically just enabled, like I said before, certain compute loads to perform much higher than the traditional RTX 2060 was ever.
Ones that were more bandwidth limited, but again, that's just because of like weird, hey, we use this particular chip instead of the normal chip. It's like, all right.
Yeah. And it was
a potato chip.
Shut up, Andrew. You get some. You can get some weird, like I don't want to say emergent property, but that seems like the best word to use. You get some weird quirks like that when you use certain salvage dies. Like there are some Pentium processors from Intel, you know, the cute little dual cores that they're still selling in 2020. You can find some Pentiums that use a quad core die rather than a dual core die because, well, it's a salvage die. Might as well not, you know, trash it. Half of it still works, so it can be sold as a product. And I think the latency is one cycle longer in certain situations because of the fact that it has to go through a bigger ring bus, and in addition, the TDP is a bit higher. Like Intel rates it to use more power for whatever reason, even though like the CPU clock's the same, and in theory, like everything should be identical. What's another one? Oh yeah, the 10700K performs worse than the 9900K. When it comes to memory latency, and the suspicion is because the ring bus has just gotten stretched too long. Like 10 cores is just a bit too much. 8 was close to the upper limit. And as a result, you get some particularly high latency when you are using this CPU, like core-to-core latency. Oh god, I'm going to seize.
I got some bad news. I can't drive this tractor anymore. I'm pushing all the wrong buttons.
You should do it in real life, Andrew.
So to provide some context, Andrew's consumed a large quantity of podcast juice very quickly, and he's trying to play a game at the same time.
Yeah, Andrew is a huge moron.
I will cut you, Chris, or whatever your name is here.
That's right.
So,
honestly, please do. I'll tell you where I live.
I know where you live. I've sent you your address.
Oh, god damn it. That's right.
So, yeah, anyway, it's an interesting product. It just seems like it's another way for them to recycle what are essentially deemed as not sufficient for the actual product chips and just resell them at with a potential performance that is good for something. I mean, honestly, I don't expect to sell any more.
There's no reason to expect it to be better necessarily. If I recall correctly, there was actually some controversy about early 2070s based on how or was it 2060s? Just based on how some of the cores were lasered off. Like some of them had, again, the GPCs. Some of them had 5 available, and others had 6. So they performed differently. And in games, it was more or less fine, but in certain compute applications, it was different because. I don't know why they didn't predict it. If there's one thing to AMD's credit when it comes to binning their chips, they do tend to keep everything about the same. If AMD disables cores in a GPU, they will disable, or not cores, compute units. They will disable 1 per shader engine. It will be symmetric. Intel and NVIDIA, well, not so much. They can get funky. Actually, that's another thing as well. With AMD's Ryzen chips, I asked Mr. Robert Halleck this years ago. This was before Ryzen even launched, I think, when they had detailed the CCX and how that worked. I had asked for clarification if they were using for, let's say, the 6-core Ryzen chips, if they were doing 4+2 core configurations, or if it was all 3+3, because 2 CCXs per die, 4 cores each. And he clarified that they would be identical. So I guess the intent was they wouldn't get this kind of weird quirk. The only exception to that, the ones where they are asymmetric, are some of the quad-core CPUs where it's just one CCX is fully enabled and the other is fully disabled.
Wait, why am I Kentucky Fried Cretin?
What? All right.
Oh, wait, no, I remember now. I asked Simmons to change my name to Kentucky Fried Cretin in some other Discord.
All right, we're cutting.
I forgot about it.
All right, so moving on. We've got a wonderful article about Ampere, but not the Ampere that you think it is.
I made that joke before we started, and I was sober even. Oh, wait, hang on. Different thing about Alder Lake. I'm closing tabs now. It is alleged to use DDR5. So make of that as you will. I don't think the spec is finalized. It's already finalized last year, but just going back to that.
We said that. All right, so Ampere. Chris, please talk about this for me.
Hi. Okay, so ARM, ARM, Acorn RISC Machine, aka Acorn Reduced Instruction Set. I don't remember what the C stands for in that. Machine. Anyway, so that's the most widely used ISA in the world, I believe, if only because it goes in a lot of I don't want to say cheap CPUs, but it's not even CPUs. Just
value-focused CPUs.
No, because the thing is, it doesn't go in your traditional CPU. It is used very frequently in let's say an SSD controller, for example, that would be using ARM cores a lot of times, or a RAID controller, or
specialty computing,
barely more than an ASIC for a flip phone, that kind of thing. They use ARM cores. However, they can be used as traditional CPUs. Obviously, that's what they were designed to be. It just so happens that, the licensing's good and it's well documented, so they became popular elsewhere. But ARM is finally making its way into data center.
Mm-hmm.
It has been for a few years. There's a bunch of big players in the market. Marvell is one, although I think they might have sold off their thing.
I was going to say, Amazon's got the Graviton processors.
Yeah. Is that an in-house design?
I don't know if it's necessarily in-house, but they own the rights to it, so.
Yeah. Not really in data center, but you have seen high-performance ARM cores from, I'm not sure if Qualcomm does custom cores, do they? Is Snapdragon custom, or is it just, slightly tweaked Cortex designs? I don't remember. Apple has been doing, custom ARM cores and rather high performance of that for years. They've got some of the best, not just ARM cores, but CPU cores in the entire industry.
What about my boys at Texas Instruments?
Yeah, they make ARM stuff.
Yeah, they do, actually.
I don't think it's very good. Of course they make ARM stuff. They make semiconductors. Oh, fun fact about that, Andrew. I was in an office supply store the other day, and
I saw the picture. They UV damaged.
Yeah, the display of all of these calculators, and they were all just horribly UV damaged because they haven't been replaced in like 15 years. But anyway, so ARM is...
One second, Chris.
Oh yeah, hi, sorry. Jack made a contribution, but in text.
Annapurna Labs. They're owned by Amazon, and they designed the Graviton.
I can't believe that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, because you're cross-eyed, but that's a different story.
Yeah, that's like
probably.
Simmons, but the opposite. Okay, so that was contracted by a third party then. But regardless, lots of players in the game because it's a common ISA and you can get a license pretty easily. Frankly, ARM has also made it a bit easier to get a hold of. I don't remember what they called the program now, but they allow... they allow companies access to their IP without purchasing it, with the stipulation that they pay for the IP that they actually use in the final product. So instead of being like, hi, I want to pay X $1,000 to get access to this core design, it's, I have entered into this program, I get access to this core design for free, and then we'll work out payment once we actually hit market. And that's very good for research and development.
Lab or something? Somebody worked on like a university lab, and then you don't get paid for what you create, but the university does, but they'll work out a deal with you?
That's stupid.
No, that's for like...
No, it's kind of sort of similar in a very loose metaphor, simile, but not necessarily the same, just due to you're dealing with market licensing of a hardware architecture, and then once you have access to the license, you have full access to the designs and the architecture SKU and all that.
What they're doing is, with this new program, I think it was introduced last year, maybe 2 years ago. What they're doing is they are allowing access to designs before you pay for them rather than after you pay for them. So you don't have to pay for it up front. And you're still paying the licensing fee per unit sold, but you get access to more stuff up front while you're designing, which makes it a lot easier for, in particular, small startups. And that would include university research groups, I believe. That allows them easier access to these designs, which is good. Anyway, really common ISA, just staggeringly common. And they're finally making their way into high-performance stuff. And a lot of these server chips, which actually include some of AMD's efforts back in 2013, I think, the Opteron... Oh, gosh, I don't remember what it was now. Opteron 2100, maybe? I'd have to pull up the SKU. But regardless, AMD did try it. They were a bit early to it, and they used a bit too stock standard core. So they didn't really get a foothold in the market. But
the Opteron A1100?
That sounds right, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're making their way into data center because, well, you don't have to deal with Intel and AMD, and there's some advantages such as they're just generally a bit lower power for the same performance. Now we're getting into...
So let me go into this product SKU real quick. So just to clarify for our listeners who may not know who this company actually is, Ampere is actually the name of the company, and this is their new Ultra core, or ALTRA core, I should say, Ultra, if you will.
I hit the apex with the tractor.
Thanks, Andrews.
You're a real winner.
With this announcement that we've received from them, we're going to be seeing 80 core Ultra CPUs within Q3 of 2020. The top SKU is looking at a 3.3 gigahertz base clock on 80 cores with a 250 watt TDP with whatever formula that they decide to use for TDP, and 8-channel 3200 megahertz DDR4 RAM, which is really fascinating. And then
what about DDR4 memory?
Stop doing that, Chris. You've ruined that joke so much. You're worse than Reddit.
Okay, and then in addition, we'll be seeing 250 watt TDP 128 Ultra cores in Q4 of 2020.
Here's the deal. Based on power consumption numbers that people have gotten who have actually gotten these kinds of chips in the lab, I fully believe them. Like, we have seen things like this is 80 to 90% as fast as a big-ass Xeon or EPIC chip, and it's using about half the power. Because that's one of the major advantages of ARM, which is it's just generally lower power than x86.
Yep. So in a couple of other additional, a couple of other interesting things to note here is we've got what are we seeing here? So with the eight channels of memory, it is 8 channels of DDR4 3200 ECC at 2 DIMMs per channel, with a maximum support of up to 4 terabytes of memory per socket in a 1P or 2P configuration. Each CPU will offer 128 PCI Express 4.0 lanes, 32 of which will be used for socket-to-socket communication and multi-proc motherboards, and then that is an estimated 50 gigabytes per second bidirectionally between the two processors.
So to be clear, what we are looking at as far as like topology goes is very similar to AMD's EPIC.
Yep.
Like, we're taking some of the PCI Express lanes and using them for an inner socket link. Yep. We have a buttload of cores. We have 8 memory channels. And keep in mind that these cores are incredibly good. Like, these are, Skylake, like, at worst, they're Haswell tier.
The difference between memory channels and RAM channels is you can't memory channel something up your butt.
That's correct.
That's how you do the joke, Chris. Stop ruining it.
Okay. All right. But anyway, I think this is pretty fascinating. I like seeing more of this ARM stuff come to the data center, because especially with like how Amazon has been utilizing it for.
Well, what about the Macs? The Macs are using ARM now. Well, not now, but they're going to.
Yeah, but I don't think they would be using these chips necessarily, because, quite frankly, Apple...
No, they're using their own design, like they do with the iPhones.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
again, that goes back to what I said. ARM it's getting high performance. Apple's got like 10 years of experience making high performance ARM socks, and that's... Well, part of the reason that they're moving over from x86 to that is because... They can just make the chips cheaper. Cheaper, but also lower power, and they don't have to rely on a third party other than the fab itself. Because, Apple's...
The heat as well. They've had a lot of issues recently with heat.
There's also been some rumor that Apple is actually going to enter the chipmaker business and sell some of their ARM processors for use in other systems, which... Honestly,
I really hope that means you can make your own Mac, because I want to do that.
Probably not.
I tried to install Mac on my AMD system and it doesn't work because it's AMD.
Yeah, Hackintoshes are finicky at the best of times. So
there was that guy that went to China and built his own iPhone using only parts from like the Chinese marketplace.
Yeah. He also did another one where he added a Qi charger to like an iPhone 5 or something.
For reference, don't do it. It costs them like twice as much to do it than just to buy the phone.
Yeah, it turns out you can just buy replacement parts and make the thing that you're...
With that lovely segue, moving on to the next topic.
Segues.
Actually, in line with big processors and big chips. Haha, yes. Join the Extreme Hardware Minecraft server. We're running 1.16.1 right now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Apparently, it's really good. I haven't been able to join because it's not working for me.
Yeah. Well,
Actually, it is working for me. I just rage quit because I lost all my things and Simmons stole them.
Well, no. I did not steal them. You gave me permission to take them.
I did, but you still stole them.
Okay, you know what? I'm at a point now where I can replace everything that you ever gave to me or lost.
Well, replace them then.
I will.
Do it. It'll be funny.
I'll find your address. I'll go to Chris's house and get your address and then go to your house and then steal them back.
I can just DM you his address. That's no big deal.
Please don't. So moving on.
I also know the password to his computer.
Oh, give me his passwords. I can use it for blackmail.
One of those dummies who has his password hint as his password.
Simmons. Chris is going to send me your passwords. You should give me $5,000 and I won't make it public.
So, new supercomputer.
Hey, Simmons, do you use that password for anything online?
No. Of course
Oh,
not.
okay, that's smart.
That's unfortunate. Give me $5,000 anyway.
I'm not stupid. I use different passwords for all of my computers, and then all my accounts have a different password.
Nerd.
Imagine.
You're time, Simmons. You got to get yourself a physical token like a Yuba key. I'll just
Oh, man, you know what? I kind of want to bring this up now, but I've invited Chris into a Discord server with a former coworker of mine, and apparently they had a fun time re-engineering one of those YubiKey tokens, and they were ranting about it the other night. It gave everyone a headache who was just involved in the conversation.
And when I get to the point, I've seen my buddy plays a lot of WoW, and Blizzard actually has a specific Blizzard token for logging into WoW. Because for the people that are really, really serious about WoW, their accounts are worth like thousands and thousands of dollars, so they need something. But it's a real thing. Once you get to the point where like your Blizzard account needs an actual physical token to log in, but your bank account doesn't, I think it's time to have a chat with yourself.
Yeah.
Well, it's time to have a chat with your bank because my bank needs one of those.
My bank doesn't let me use not alphanumeric characters, so that's...
My bank uses Face ID, but I need to put in a passcode every once in a while in case my face changes.
Oh, yeah.
In there manually.
I'm not even joking. Like every 20 times I sign in, I need to use the passkey. Otherwise, it won't let me sign in because it says Face ID invalid.
What if somebody kidnapped you and forced you to look at a camera or something?
Yeah, I'm sure someone is going to do that for £50.
You should spend all of that money on booze.
Okay.
Do you know how many curly whirlies that can buy? At least 15.
Okay, so let me talk about supercomputers, guys. Come on.
No, I hate you.
I have a supercomputer because it's got an AMD CPU. It's not a good one, but it's still a supercomputer because it's not Intel.
We now have the new number one supercomputer in the world. And no, this is not folding at home this time. This is actually one of those traditional supercomputers all housed in one location.
Yeah, you can just get on the 500 list, by the way. It's not
the Fugaku supercomputer in Japan with A64FX is going to be estimated at about 415 petaflops of processing.
Petaflops?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yes, pedo flops.
So
Are these core counts like 7.3 million cores?
Yep. So this new computer is based on A64FX 48 core processors. It has
ARM chip.
Yep. It's got 7.299 million cores with an estimated 415,000 teraflops per second in RMAX and 513,000 RP T-flops.
Teraflops per second means floating point operations per second, which is like...
Yeah, we should hire it so we can fold for the upcoming folding event on Extreme Hardware.
Yeah, you'll be in first place, probably.
Yep, and the estimated power draw of this system running at full tilt is 28 kilowatts.
Jesus Christ!
28 kilowatts now. That's got to be like 28 megawatts, my dude.
No. Sorry,
kilowatts.
20,000 kilowatts. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, there we go. That's
my car does that much, probably. How much is 280 horsepower in kilowatts?
I can tell you off the top of my head.
I think it's about 190 kilowatts.
Okay, yeah, my bad.
Yeah,
I had a verbal typo.
Because Alex's car had the same power, but he had front-wheel drive, which is wrong.
Yes.
The computer before that, the Summit, only consumed like 10,000 kilowatts. So like this is a massive leap ahead.
Well, yeah.
Using ARM.
But keep in mind, it's a basically linear power increase based on the previous number one. It's just now they have more of these systems in one single location as an aggregate unit.
So what the heck is
that kind of cheating?
For?
No.
Oh, I made an oopsie.
No, Frick, that's not cheating because, quite frankly, the deal with a lot of these supercomputers is the biggest thing in terms of cost for these is the amount of like data center space that you have to set up to run one of these.
Not just that, like half the cost at least goes to the fabric, like not even the actual CPUs. It's just getting the CPUs to communicate because these things are going to like 100 gig Ethernet at the slowest.
Yeah. So, I think this one might. There's no actual information about it, but with the new 400 gigabit per second standard that now exists, I wouldn't be surprised if they're moving to something like that.
Let me see. Well, that's why I said minimum. I think the most common interface on the top 500 list is Ethernet, and I think 10 gig is still the most common just because it's affordable. But let me see.
Okay, so we actually do have some interesting information. So according
to on the wire right now,
Tofu interconnect D.
Because we brought up because I brought up the folding thing. Folding at home still is more powerful than this supercomputer. So we're still winning, boys. It is currently...
Yeah, but your interconnect, your fabric there is like a DSL line. So...
I mean, okay, but Chris, we don't look at the little minor details. We're talking about the raw.
Okay, the Tofu 2 interconnect. This is from 2018, so this might be an older version. 45.8 gigabytes per second, or 92% of peak. That actually gives us a good number. Give me a second. 45.8 divided by 0.92, and then times 9, and I pressed the wrong button, so... That is a 400 gigabit per second link. So it is not Ethernet, but it is on a scale achievable by Ethernet. Very expensive Ethernet, but Ethernet regardless. So yeah, no, it's that kind of, that's going to be very expensive. Especially so since like Ethernet is, a commodity. This thing is for very specific systems. Like you're not going to use this on a general purpose network.
They're using the supercomputer to track horse flu in Japan, and apparently that's all they disclose it's being used for.
Oh, it's probably used for like nuke testing. I'm not sure if Japan is developing those, but like goddamn,
they should do nuke testing the old-fashioned way, where they just blow them up near Las Vegas.
I do like
nuke. Yeah, honestly. No, the Department of Energy has a lot of supercomputer stuff for that reason. The National Weather Service also has some cool supercomputers for doing weather research, but that doesn't get nearly as much funding, even though climate change means we probably need it. So,
I want to talk about Threadripper. Damn it!
No, I want to get sued. Damn it!
No, it's a thing.
All right. Fine. You know what, Simmons? If we're going to talk about Threadripper, you're a dumb bitch and you got a 1900X, and there will never be another 8-core Threadripper because you're the only idiot who bought one.
That's not accurate. I feel like there's about 5 others of us who also bought one.
I'm going to hit you in real life.
Chris, you fucking idiot. Enterprise bought one.
Oh, right. Oh, yes, you did.
Oh, shit, the boss man bought one. Only idiots in Enterprise bought one.
So anyway, okay, so we have an announcement about new Threadripper 2 chips that are coming out, specifically the Threadripper Pro 3995WX.
Yeah, it's just Rome. It's 8-channel now. It's Rome, but with new branding and probably will require new motherboards.
So here, there are a couple interesting things. So basically, this is the same 8-channel memory controller that's on Epic.
Yes, that's what I said.
With Threadripper, though.
With Threadripper branding, and it's not going to be compatible in Threadripper boards because,
no. Chris, shut up a second. What's interesting about it is the fact that it is going to be unlocked core Epic at this point, which is neat. But I think the more interesting one was the other CPU that you tried to at me about on Twitter the other day.
Which one did I try to at you about?
Was it the 12-core? Something or?
Yeah, it was probably the 12-core.
Yeah, so basically, the reason why I wanted to talk about this so much is now I know what CPU I'm going to be buying.
Simmons, I'm going to hit you in the face. Okay, so here's the deal. Number one, Simmons, the far more appropriate CPU for you is the Epic 7232P, which is an 8-core Epic CPU, because that's more up your alley, because you just want to be a contrarian and make things bad for yourself. Okay,
here's the thing, though. I still use like what are considered HEDT boards, so that's not going to work.
Yeah, it'll probably be compatible. I actually see no reason that they wouldn't lock out Epic chips.
And here's my other thing is because one of my long games with my Threadripper system is ultimately my Threadripper system that I currently am running now is going to be moved into my server.
Yeah. Oh, if you do that, you should get a buttload of NVMe drives. Just get like 100 terabytes of NVMe. It'll be great.
Buttload of NVMe drive.
Yeah, months.
But here's the thing: is
A buttload.
though I would absolutely do that, my system is ultimately a gaming server, so like filling it up with a crap ton of NVMe drives is kind of pointless. Really,
Wow, weird. Sounds like you need RAM and cores, and you're not going to get that with your dinky little 8-core 1900X. You're just wasting all of this I.O. because none of these things are going to be GPU accelerated, probably, nor are they going to benefit from huge amounts of storage.
Okay, Chris, first of all, we've had this conversation before.
I don't remember it, so it doesn't count.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll give you the benefit
We
of the doubt.
have a lot of podcast juice.
Shut up, Andrew. You're one to talk.
But anyway,
No,
Yeah.
hang on. This is very important. Chris, you're an alcoholic.
Probably.
Is grain whiskey good?
I mean,
Yeah,
there's lots of grains, so that includes...
well, no, Chris, you had some, remember?
Have I? I've only had bourbon to the best of my knowledge, unless you...
Moonshine.
Something. Oh, is that considered a grain whiskey? Yeah, I had some of Simmons's coffee moonshine that tastes like Hershey syrup. I also had some of his peppermint moonshine that tastes like rubbing alcohol and Altoids.
Yes, it sure did.
Yeah, I didn't
Tesco
like
Valley vodka tastes like rubbing alcohol.
Well, I mean, yeah, valid. That's.
It's also
Yeah.
really low percentage. It's 35%. Most of it
By
is
the
like
way,
40.
speaking of cheap booze that you can buy at Tesco, hand sanitizer, it doesn't taste good. I had I had a flat bottle of Sprite, so I decided it would be funny to record myself getting a few pumps of hand sanitizer and then like taking a swig of it. They denature it. It tastes like hexane.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, don't drink it.
Okay.
It's probably not hexane, but regardless, it tastes bad.
So we're going to change the topic a little bit away from...
We are absolutely not.
So NVIDIA has announced the end of production for RTX 20. I don't know why this is actually news because we know that...
Wait, no. Hang on. There's one thing I wanted to say about the new Threadrippers. So do you remember a couple years ago, the Xeon W3175X?
Yeah.
The unlocked 28-core Xeon? Yeah, that's kind of the vibes that I'm getting off of these Threadripper things. It is AMD's top-tier server chips, and it's the server socket and everything, except it's unlocked and for a combination of enthusiasts and very high-end workstations.
And this is the thing that I'm going to say about AMD, is I will give them credit. They're not trying to brand these kinds of CPUs as their Epic branding, which still think that's like the worst brand name for a server CPU.
Yeah, it's spelled with a Y. It's so cringy and gamery.
But regardless, I mean, I appreciate that they are taking basically what are unlocked Epic chips and they are just putting them as Threadripper Pro, even though that's silly on its own terms. But they are absolutely trying to market segment it from the rest of their server chips. So,
Jack, why are you angry at us for drinking podcast juice?
No, it isn't. I just bought
because
some
I
more.
just want to strangle all of you right now.
I think that's valid.
Honestly, same.
Yeah.
So I do want to just briefly rant about this. The end of RTX 20 production, of course, that's ending because RTX 30 series is going to be coming very soon. I don't know. Does anybody have anything interesting to say about this?
They need to make good GPUs. They need to release a GPU that actually competes with the 1080 Ti.
I mean, they do. It's called the 2080. That competes really nicely.
Yeah, but that's not from AMD. That's from NVIDIA.
Oh, you mean it? Well, no. AMD's got the 57, whatever their top tier copy chip is now. It competes nicely.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't compete.
It's
With
quite a
the
bit slower.
1080 Ti?
Yeah, it's quite a bit slower.
Let me check Tech Power Up. Hang on. Tech Power
They
Up.
had the Radeon 7, which did compete with it, but
The
that was a limited
Chatteon
runtime.
7. Yeah. I missed the Chatteon 7. That was such a good card, and I can't imagine that AMD was making any money off it. Shit, that's right. The Chatteon 7 is still faster than the 5700 XT, which is about 10% slower than a 1080 Ti. That's right. Oh my god, I forgot about that. AMD still doesn't have an answer for NVIDIA's 2016 flagship. Or, yeah, 2017. It's been 4 years and they've got nothing. Oh, my God. Oh,
AMD
wow.
can't do good GPUs and good CPUs at the same time. It's
Apparently
embarrassing.
not. Apparently, I don't know. I think they had like the Phenom X6 and the Radeon 4000 series at the same time. That was pretty good.
Well, with the FX, they were making really good GPUs, and then they released Ryzen, and then they just went to shit.
Honestly, the contemporary GPUs with FX were not that good. Like, that was the first gen GCN stuff. I was using quite a bit more power than Kepler, and was quite a bit slower.
No, Chris, you're wrong. AMD Fine technology.
Oh, yeah, no, Fine Wine.
Wait, no, shut up.
I don't want to say...
Jack wants to talk about something more important.
No, Fine Wine didn't really happen. It's just Kepler sucked. Fine Wine could have happened day one. That just means that AMD had crap drivers until their GPUs were obsolete.
Listen, AMD GPUs have always had crap drivers, and that hasn't changed. Yeah, sure, they make improvements, but by the time they make improvements, it's too late because NVIDIA already is putting out significantly better product.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I said. Or Pell, AMD is putting out better products. And then they ended up competing with Maxwell, and you had like same performance at half the power of like equivalent cards. Because like the 980 was outperforming the 290X for 100 watts less.
Okay. So anyway, Linus Torvalds, and quote, "I hope AVX 512 dies a painful death," end quote. Jack, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, sure. So on the whole thing that he does with the kernel where he like does comments and all that, and he whines about things, I'm going to read the whole thing here because I'm probably as pissed off as he feels. So let's just read it here. "I hope AVX 512 dies a painful death, and that Intel starts fixing real problems instead of trying to create magic instructions to then create benchmarks that they could look good on. I hope Intel gets back to basics, gets their process working again, and concentrate more on regular code that isn't HPC or some other pointless special case. I said this before and I'll say it again. In the heyday of x86, when Intel was laughing all the way to the bank and killing all their competition, absolutely everybody else did better than Intel on floating point loads. Intel's floating point performance sucked, relatively speaking, and it mattered not one iota, because absolutely nobody cares outside of benchmarks. The same is largely true of AVX 512 now, and in the future. Yeah, you could find things that care. No, those things don't sell machines in the big picture. And AVX 512 has real downsides. I'd much rather see that transistor budget used on other things that are much more relevant, even if it's still floating point math, in the GPU rather than the AVX 512. Or just give me more cores with good single thread performance, but without the garbage like AVX 512, like AMD did. I want my power limits to be reached with regular integer code. Sorry, I can't with him. Not with some AVX 512 power virus that takes away top frequency because people ended up using it for memcopy. That's actually kind of funny. And takes away cores because those useless garbage units take up space. Yes, I'm biased. I absolutely detest floating point benchmarks, and I realize other people care deeply. I just think AVX 512 is exactly the wrong thing to do. It's a pet peeve of mine. It's a prime example of something Intel has done wrong, partly by just increasing the fragmentation of the market. Stop with the special case garbage and make all the core common stuff that everybody cares about run as well as humanly can. Then do a floating point unit that is barely good enough on the side, and people will be happy. AVX2 is much more than enough. Yeah, I'm grumpy. And that's what he had to say about it.
Okay, yeah.
Why do people listen to Linus's? Why do people give his opinions this much weight exactly? Like, I haven't really figured that out.
Well, it's just a Linus that throws computers at...
No. This is Linux.
Linux Linus, not the...
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is Linux Linus, Mr. Linux Linus of Linux Incorporated.
Yeah, not to be confused with the Linus who has done way more for computing and the industry.
And yes, this hasn't been another Linus Tech Tips.
Yeah.
I can't get my chair.
So Chris, you actually had a few choice words to say about this before we started recording. I want you to just go at it, buddy.
I mean, honestly, I don't even remember what I was going to say. I just don't understand why, like, so many people care. Like, he's just one guy, and I don't know. I mean, the thing is, it's like, why is he so concerned with integer stuff? Because, like, HPC stuff does not use integer. Like, who died?
Oh,
someone died
Simmons,
again.
his computer's broken.
Yeah, the internet's doing the thing again.
Yeah, this is going to be hell to stitch together. Good thing Jack's dealing with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
No, like I've done HPC type stuff before, like computational chemistry stuff, and yeah, all of this is floating point. You can make it GPU accelerated too. It's just easier to run on a CPU, obviously. I think actually my university's supercomputer had one generation too old GPU to use like CUDA, which kind of sucked. But yeah, it's there's certain workloads that benefit, and yeah, sure, I get what he means by, you know, it does take up space on a general purpose CPU, but like if you look at a let me see if I can pull up an Ice Lake die shot, because it's not as much as you might think. Because like the rule of thumb with a modern CPU is about a third of it is even the cores. Like so much else goes to like IO, for instance. And then or like IOs, but also like interconnects, for example, Intel's ring bus or mesh or whatever. And then of the remaining third, only about a third of that goes to the logic that actually turns like numbers into other numbers, because most of the core is like branch predictors and cache.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I really don't think it's as big a deal as he's making it out to be from an engineering perspective at all, as far as like floor space goes. I mean, yeah, sure, there's an argument to be made that they should be focusing on other things like AVX2, because actually fully utilizing AVX 512 is hard, but
you know, first generation Ryzen and how it processed AVX2 and was it 2 clock cycles or whatever the heck the thing was, or 2 ports?
Yeah, I think it was like half the size as Intel's AVX2 unit.
Oh yeah, it was 2 128s or something like that. Yeah.
Rockstar only tested Red Dead Redemption 2 on Intel systems because when it released, if you played it on a Ryzen computer, the time would run quicker than it's supposed to, and the game is just broken.
Nice.
And it took them like 3 months to fix it.
That's like an old that's a thing that used to happen on like old Commodore games, or like old games where like everything was tied to a clock speed. That's a really old glitch.
Yeah.
I think this just has to do with the
pretty new game engine as well. Yeah. They're using like Rage 2.0 or something.
Bro, that happened on my old copy of like Duke Nukem 1 for DOS.
Yeah, the Rage engine is really good and really bad at the same time.
Yeah, timing stuff is actually very hard. It's not nearly as easy as you would think, even though it seems simple to just count.
Yeah, I got 6 cores and 12 threads, so it just confused the game engine, and everything ran twice as fast.
Oh wait, what would happen if you went online with that?
Well, online wasn't available at the time, not on PC.
Oh man, you probably would have just dominated everything, and nobody would have ever known.
Oh no. It was actually worse because the AI would shoot all 6 rounds in their guns instantly. Like you couldn't do anything about it; you'd die, and also time ran twice as quick. Like, you got no benefit from it at all.
Yeah, I wonder if that thing you were talking about with Red Dead Redemption 2 had to do with the Ryzen high precision event timer bug.
Oh,
where if you made it go to sleep and things would be faster.
That probably was it. Because it did take them a while to fix it. They did eventually fix it. It's fine now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on this one, Obsidian Boss says that RAM is the most important thing in next-gen consoles.
No, there's in storages.
From Fergus Urquhart. That's the best I'm going to get out of this. Of course, technology is an important thing to RPGs, but for us, it's about character story, blah, 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 blah. I was playing on an Apple 1.5 Plus. It wasn't really an Apple II because my friend... Okay, not important. Now our job is to put people into worlds, and technology does afford us to make a world more believable. I've been asked before, what is the most important thing about future generations? And I'm like, RAM.
What
But
about
you know the
memory?
most important next generation game?
The least sexy thing out of all of it. But according to Chris, that would be the most sexy thing.
It's the most sexy thing because you can ram things up butts.
Shut up. The most important next generation game that's ever going to be released is GTA 5 for the PS5.
What about Skyrim for the PS5?
Oh,
They haven't
Minecraft
announced
is
it yet. I
released for
think
the
they're gonna do a
PS5. Did you guys hear?
Oh, great.
What?
Minecraft is coming out for PS5.
But GTA 5 is coming out for PS5.
Well, let's to introduce ourselves.
That's not a joke.
Yeah, hi.
But
So-
Rockstar announced that they're going to be at the Sony event to announce a new game. Everyone was really excited, and then they just said, "Oh, it's GTA 5." No, the game they released in 2013.
It's a new Grand Theft Auto game, so they're not wrong.
It's not a
no,
new
it's not.
game. It's the same game. Like they've
No,
changed
it's new.
nothing.
It's never been on PS5.
It's never been on PS5, but it's not new. It's the same game.
It's it's a PS5 exclusive.
Shut up, Frick. I'm going to find out where you live and find you and then punch you.
Dude, me first.
And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about today, because I think we'll be doing an extras recording after this one. This one's exciting to me, and I think only me in this chat. But Rajan Tech has announced a new revision of the Morpheus GPU cooler.
As soon as a big nerd and uses aftermarket GPU
Okay, first of all,
it's not even liquid.
Listen. Well, I mean, okay, if you want to get into technicalities, technically there is in the heat pipes, but we're not going to talk about that. Moving on.
You.
So this new revision of the yes.
I'm going to interject you and say that is a really stupid comment because then you can say air cooling's like liquid cooling because there's moisture in the air.
Air
There
cooling
is.
is like liquid cooling because I can punch Simmons in the mouth.
Yeah, that's fair. And also,
You had multiple chances to do that, including while being drunk, and you didn't do it, so you're not going to do it. Shut up.
No.
Yeah, but I did grab his balls.
yeah, that's true.
Oh God.
Okay, so anyway, so the newest revision of the Rajan Tech cooler, they're still sticking with their replace the stock heatsink that comes on your graphics card and put on this other, more different heatsink. Obviously, they're going to be updating the different types of mounting hardware that's included to fit all the current gen GPUs. But now it is a 12 heat pipe air cooler as opposed to the previous generation, which I believe was 10 heat pipes. The most significant thing about this GPU cooler is, like previous editions, is it fits two 120 mil fans on it. What does that mean? If
I could just put anything on there.
Yeah. So it's basically the same size as a 240 mil radiator, but instead of using screws to mount the fans to the radiator, you're using clips.
Or you just use
Lord,
ties.
this thing weighs over a pound?
Oh yeah, no.
Jesus Christ.
This heat sink is
That's that heavy.
Well,
Honestly,
okay,
Pound?
listen. The big thing about this, and the most effective way that I've seen to use it, is in my current configuration, where I have a horizontal motherboard tray in my system. So all the weight just goes directly into
like
the motherboard,
those
sagging.
weird weirdos on the internet that prop up their GPUs with Funko Pops. Or Vuff, whatever those weird
Funko Pop should be illegal.
Yeah, I agree. But anyway, the most fascinating about these GPU heatsinks, though, is if you're also in a similar use case as me, you can slap two Delta 120 mil 7200 RPM fans to these things.
Yeah.
As long as you don't blow up your fan controller like I did once.
Yeah, don't do
it will
that.
work
Just
perfectly.
plug them into a car battery.
Honestly, that would work. 12
It would
volt.
work.
Because it's 12 volts, but it's also very high amperage.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
plug it into
Starter
my
motors on
portable
cars
battery
put out like 8 kilowatts or something.
Yeah.
So the big selling point for this heatsink is that it is being marketed for being able to successfully cool 2080 Ti's below their stock offerings. Now,
Hey, Andrew, speaking of cars and power, should I stick my hand in my transmission?
You can't even do that. It's closed, you idiot.
Well, we're going to fix that, and then I'm going to put my hand in it.
why do you want to put your hand in the transmission?
No, Chris, I've got a really good idea. You should jam the thermostat for the radiator to on.
Should
As
I
in your fan
leave
will
the
switch on.
thermostat?
What? Okay, why not?
Okay,
And
so
then,
I think
then
you
the
dropped some
radiator fan will
jelly
come
beans in
on,
there or
and then
something.
you can just jam your hand in it.
okay,
Nice.
so does anybody else have anything that they would like to say about a new revision of the Morpheus heatsink?
I kind of
Nobody
do.
cares. Oh,
I
go for it,
care.
Jack.
Shut the f*** up. Jesus Christ.
That was rude.
It was.
God.
No, of you, Chris.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
Chris,
you're right.
No, all of you except for Simmons.
I didn't say anything. I'm
Hey,
chilling.
hey. I wasn't even speaking.
I'm eating my
forgot you
Sour
were- I
Patch
didn't even
Kids
know you were
lollipops.
here.
Yeah, it
I'm doing
includes
it for its
Martin.
importance.
Martin's a fucker.
All right, go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, I'm looking at on their website, and I'm looking at the alignment of the fins, the heatsink,
Mhm.
and what's the exhaust air pattern like on this kind of thing?
So the way that this has been intended for use in previous designs is air goes through the top of the fans, which are mounted to the top of the heatsink, and blows directly into the GPU. So the way that they market this as being effective is with the amount of airflow that's going through the heatsink blasted straight into the PCB, it eliminates the need for the heatsink or the thermal pads that are utilized to connect to the stock VRM heatsink configuration.
Okay.
However, they do with the Morpheus 2. Mine did come with a bunch of thermal pads and little copper heatsinks that you can stick on your memory chips or your VRMs if you so felt the need for it.
Side note, when I bought an Arctic cooler, Arctic Extreme 2, you know the one that everyone stuck on their GPUs, like the 480 and 5870, it didn't come with those. And that was really, 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 really annoying, me being in South Africa and not being able to order any. So what I did is I didn't run any cooling on my VRMs or VRAM or anything. And it was fine until it died.
I don't think it died from VRM overheating, because that's the thing.
Do you know what it died from? I shit you not. It died from an electrostatic shock.
Oh, that sucks. Hey, Alex, is your finger healed up yet?
Yeah.
No, it's at 99.8%.
Chris.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, what ends up happening with this style of GPU cooler is like these VRMs only tend to overheat because the way that the heatsink and the airflow design is set up in them, it's not conducive to good airflow at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because basically you're pushing some air through it, and then it just kind of gets trapped with either the plastic or the metal shroud, depending on what they decided to do for this specific GPU design. So by being able to shove, because this is intended to be used with high static pressure rated fans, obviously, like not
For my gentle typhoons.
Gentle typhoons are actually a really good option for these. Honestly, the biggest issue the biggest issue with these GPU heatsinks, though, is if you do start slapping on full-size 120 mil fans, you can take up about 3 to 4 PCI Express slots worth of space with a single GPU. So what this...
You should get like 20 Delta fans and strap them to your GPU.
Okay, yeah, I'll get right on that. But what this is really used for, it's a way to push close to, like, it's not quite as good as a full coverage water block for your GPU, but it's really close. And if you're okay with a little bit of extra fan noise, or if you're running something like Noxus or Gentle Typhoons and there is no fan noise, then this is a really good option, especially if you're not populating your PCI Express slots.
Another way, so I bought my Arctic Extreme 2. I can't remember. They changed the name depending on like if it was for 5870 or 480. They was the same cooler but different names. Anyway, it was a very standard 3-fan cooler. The temperatures weren't wildly lower than stock. Like it was around 50 degrees, 60 degrees. I mean, the 5870 cooler was actually kind of decent. My stock was like 60, 70. But the thing is, it was at that temperature while I could not hear it at all.
Mhm.
And the 5870, it's a blower fan. It was loud.
So to put it in perspective, when I swapped out the cooler on my 980 with the Morpheus 2, the average temperature in my my room was around 24 Celsius, give or take a few degrees, and it dropped the temperature on the 980 from about 80 C to about 64 C. So it was a significant difference for that specific GPU because the 980 Matrix was not intended to be ran with the stock cooler. So also I made Buildzoid really sad when I sent him the picture of my Morpheus 2 on my 980 Matrix, but that's neither here nor there.
What if you put a Morpheus 2 on like a GT10? No, not a 1070.
Like a GT 1040?
No, 710.
I mean, you could do it, but there's no point.
That'll be funny.
It would be funny.
Why is there so many stars in Alex test spam thing?
There's not.
What?
Yeah, there is. Go on it.
Oh,
Go in there right now. You see, you look. You're
Okay.
looking at things.
But anyway, so because we will be doing a podcast extras immediately after this, does anybody else have anything that they'd like to input before we sign out?
Yeah, Simmons is a fascist and won't let me talk about my cool RX-8 mod idea.
Wait, should we talk about that?
Well, no,
That's for off topic.
and stay
Or
tuned
whatever.
for our podcast extras because that will be one of the things we'll bring up. But anyway, thank you all for joining. Thank you everybody here for being here. Chris, shut up.
Eat shit, Simmons.
All right, and we will see you